Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so excited to be back with you all today and to read you another story. I have a really fun book picked out for us this afternoon, and I'm really excited about it, so I hope you enjoy it. It is Friday, July 31st, and it is 12:30 p.m. This is our third reading of the day. And we actually have one more reading after this. So we're going to have a reading from 1 o'clock to 1:30 right after this reading. So you get extra readings today. And I actually want to go ahead and get started with you all because I have a couple different readings I want to do with you all because they're all in this book. So this is actually a big book. Look how big this is. It's bigger than my whole head. And it has several stories in it. So first let's look at the cover and then we'll look inside. So this book is called Classic Animal Tales. So this is a little different. Usually we point out the title of the story that's on the front page, but this is actually the title of the whole book of stories. So this isn't just one book, it's one book of lots of stories. See, there's no author on here because all the stories have different authors. And the spine says the same thing, Classic Animal Tales. And on the back, there's a picture. What is that a picture of? It looks like a chicken and two of her babies, and it looks like she's holding either a muffin or a piece of cornbread. And then at the door, there's a puppy, a duck, and a cat. Do you see them at the door right there? Maybe we'll learn about them. So I wonder if that's the same hen and chicks that was on the back. Let's see what's inside. Oh, just a blank page. All right. And there's our title of the whole book again, Classic Animal Tales. And then this picture is different. There's a cat and it's on a bowl. Ooh, this is different. Contents. So this is the table of contents, and it tells you which stories start on which pages. So it says the city mouse and the country mouse starts on page 5. And then the ant and the grasshopper starts on page 20. Brer Rabbit outfoxes Brer Fox, 34. Androcles and the Lion starts on page 49. The Little Red Hen starts on 58. And the Cat That Walked by Himself started on 74. So, whenever we read today, I think we're going to do a couple different stories. And we'll just go until we run out of time. Because these are really good stories. So the first one that we are going to read, and remember, this is only one story out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 different stories in this whole book. How fun is that? Okay, so the first one we're going to read is The City Mouse and the Country Mouse. Have you ever read this story before? It's been a long time for me. Let's look at the picture. Can you see what's going on there? Do you think this is the city mouse or the country mouse? And look how little he is next to that giant key. For us, a key would be like this big, wouldn't it? So if it's this big and it was bigger than him, he's a small mouse. Yeah, I think that's the country mouse too. Do you see? It looks like he's inside, maybe, oh look, there's outside and there's buildings down there. Maybe that's the city and this is the country. Let's find out. And this is illustrated by Dominic Catalano. So that means that he drew the pictures in this story. I'm going to turn a little bit more. Once upon a time, a country mouse named Oliver lived in a hole under the root of a big oak tree. Oh, so that's the root of a big oak tree. He lived in a little hole right there. Oliver loved his home in the forest, surrounded by chattering squirrels, chirping crickets, and hardy grass. One day, Oliver decided to invite his city cousin, Alistair, for a visit. Before Alistair arrived, Oliver tidied up his house. He straightened the leaves on the bed, placed fresh pine needles on the floor, polished his plates, and dusted his table. Then Oliver sat by his door and gazed out at the quiet stars to wait for his cousin. So what is different about his house and your house? Did you hear what he had to do to his house to prepare for his cousin coming over? Do you remember what he said? It said he straightened the leaves on his bed. Leaves on his bed? Do you have leaves on your bed? No. That would not be comfortable for us. And it also said he placed fresh pine needles on the floor. Look, can you see the pine needles on the floor in the back? And what is that right there? It almost looks like a tuna can. He has a tuna can as a table. And a tuna can is only about this big. And that's his whole table? He must be really small. It also says he polished his plates and dusted his table. So he's getting all ready for his cousin. When Alistair arrived, he set his fine leather suitcase on Oliver's rug of fresh pine needles. "Oliver, is this your cellar?" he asked. "No, it's my home," said Oliver as he sat his cousin down at the table and served him a dinner of barley, wheat, and dandelion tea. Alistair nibbled his meal politely. "This tastes as good as it's good for me, although it doesn't have much taste," he chuckled. After dinner, they both settled into their beds and went to sleep. The next morning, a robin family twittered in the oak tree and rooster crowed at a nearby farm. Oliver leapt from his bed to start his day. "I love to hear the sounds of the countryside early in the morning," said Oliver. "It makes me want to jump out of bed to start my day." "You start your day this early?" asked Alistair. "Good heavens!" Oh no, are you already finding some differences between them? So here's Oliver, the country mouse, and Alistair, the city mouse. What are some things that they are different? So some things that they have in common is that they're both mice, right? And their family. But what do they have? What is different about them? Well, look, you can just look from the picture. What do they have on their face? Yeah, Alistair has glasses and Oliver does not. That's something that's different about them. Yep. And the city mouse. Oh, wait. The country mouse gets up early in the morning to start his day, and the city mouse does not. He said, "You start your day this early? Good heavens." Good job. Oh, and look. They're eating off of bottle caps as their plates, and their cups are sewing thimbles. How funny. "I can't stand that confounded racket," Alistair mumbled as he pressed his pillow to his ears and tried to go back to sleep. Oliver put on his overalls, pulled up his work boots, and pushed his wheelbarrow out into the sunshine to begin his day. Alistair yawned and rolled out of bed. When he stumbled outside into the sunshine, he thought it was much too bright for his eyes and much too hot to do any work. So Alistair sat beneath the shade of a tree and watched as Oliver shucked seeds from tall ryegrass and set them out to dry. Next, he saw him collect acorns, corn husks, and water. There, this work is done, said Oliver. Thank goodness, said Alistair, as he used his handkerchief to wipe the dust from his shiny shoes. I think it's high time for a snack and a nap, don't you? He asked Oliver. Oh my goodness. So, what's going on here? Look, there's Alistair. He has the pillow over his ears because it's too early, it's too bright, and it's too loud for him. And look, Oliver is ready to get the day going. He's excited and he is awake. Said he put on his overalls, he pulled up his boots, and he got to work. And then whenever they went outside, what happened? Oliver did all the work. And Alistair just sat there. He said it was too hot and it was too early and the noises he was making was too loud. But yet Alistair said, I think it's high time for a snack and a nap, don't you? So that's something else that they're different. Oliver likes to wake up early and get to work and get things done. Yeah, he's an early riser. Yep. And Alistair is not. He's the opposite. He likes to sleep in. He doesn't want to do much work. It said that he even dusted off his shoe, his leather shiny shoes. Oliver giggled. All of my work isn't finished. I still have to carry in water and trim the roots growing in my kitchen. Alistair sighed. I'm simply not cut out for country life, he said. You work too hard for your dinner here, and all you end up with is a pile of seeds. Come back to the city with me, and I'll show you the good life. So the two mice set out for Alistair's home in the city. Oliver followed Alistair over fields and valleys, into subway tunnels, and across crowded city parks until they arrived on Alistair Street. Alistair stopped in front of a beautiful hotel. Welcome to my home. This is how mice should really live, he said. Oliver stared up at the revolving glass door. But how will we get in? He asked. We wait until it's our turn, and then we run through as fast as we can, said Alistair. What is a revolving glass door? Do you know what that is? There's not a picture of it here, but what do you think? A revolving glass door. Have you ever been through one? So, I don't know if you have, but you see it and it goes in a circle and there's little cutouts for you to go in and you push it and then it opens up to the inside of the building. Yeah, you push it and it goes around and it lets you in. That's right. So instead of opening and closing like this, it goes around and around. And there they go. They're on their way to the city. What do you think Oliver is going to think of the city? He loves his country life. We will find out. When the door began to turn, Alistair darted inside. A frightened Oliver gathered his courage and dove inside after Alistair. He tried to follow his cousin, but his bag became caught on the door. Oliver went round and round so many times he couldn't tell whether he was right side up or upside down. Oh my goodness, he's dizzy. Finally, Alistair pulled him out of the doors and led Oliver across a beautiful marble hallway to a small crack hidden by heavy velvet drapes. Wow, this sounds like a fancy place, doesn't it? He went through a beautiful marble hallway to a small crack hidden by heavy velvet drapes. Whoa. Yeah, I bet he thinks it's loud too. Isn't that funny? They're just completely different sounds. Oliver looked around in amazement. There were so many fancy things everywhere. We're under the bandstand, Alistair showed him. An orchestra plays and ladies and gentlemen dance all night. How can you sleep with all that noise? Asked Oliver. Sleep? Asked Alistair. I sleep when I want. Oh, you were right, Miss Krista. He's gonna think that it's super loud. And Alistair doesn't think it's loud. Isn't that funny? But Alistair thought that it was very loud in the country with all the machines. Alistair led Oliver to the dining room. They hid behind plants and raced under tablecloths until they arrived in the chef's kitchen. Oliver was nervous. Where was Alistair taking him? What if they were found? Do be careful, Alistair warned as he quickly and quietly opened the pantry door. Inside the pantry, Oliver saw shelf after shelf of cheeses, jams, fruit, and meat. Now this is fine dining, Alistair announced as he crunched into a cracker. Oliver watched his cousin hop to the top shelf and fill his stomach with crackers, cheese, and olives. Oliver was so nervous he couldn't eat a crumb. Tonight the chef is preparing his signature roast duck with herb potatoes and a cream sauce, said Alistair. One taste of that and you'll never want to go back to the country. Follow me. It's time for the main course. Oh my goodness, they're getting all kinds of free food. Look, there he is, munching on, it looks like a noodle. Like a macaroni noodle. All kinds of food. Remember Alistair told Oliver when they were in the country, you have to work too hard for your food here. And now they are fine dining. Do you remember what they said they were having for dinner? The chef is preparing roast duck with herbed potatoes and cream sauce. Whoa. He said, one taste of that and you'll never want to go back to the country. Our chef is quite a messy fellow, said Alistair. He drops chunks of meat and potatoes and dollops of sauce all over the floor. One time I found an entire turkey leg under the stove. Alistair darted around the floor, picking up bits of duck and potatoes. He didn't notice the chef walking back into the kitchen. You again, shouted the chef, and this time you've brought a friend. I will not have you furry little pest in my 5-star kitchen. The chef took a broom and chased the mice around the kitchen until Alistair and Oliver escaped through a hole under the sink. No main course tonight, said Alistair. We'll have to make up for it with dessert. Alistair led Oliver into the dining room where they settled beneath a pastry cart. Alistair feasted on cream puffs, pastries, but Oliver lost his balance and fell straight into a cream pie. Oh man, look at all those desserts. And Oliver's not getting any of the food or the desserts because he's too nervous. He's fallen into cream pies and he's so nervous he just doesn't have an appetite. The mice rode the dessert cart until it stopped next to Alistair's apartment. Oliver wobbled off the cart and ran into Alistair's apartment before anyone could catch them. I'm not cut out for life in the city, said Oliver. You take too many risks for your supper. A mouse could starve to death here, too. There's plenty of delicious food, but I'm too frightened to eat it. I'm going home to the good life. Oh, that's funny. So, Alistair, when he visited Oliver in the country, he said the same thing, didn't he? He said, it's too loud out here, it's too early, it's too hot. You need to come back to the city with me and I'll show you what living is. And then Oliver said the same thing when he went into the city. Look, he said, you take too many risks for your supper. A mouse could starve to death here too. There's plenty of food, but I'm too frightened to eat. And then Alistair, in the beginning, he said, you work too hard for your food. Man. So Oliver traveled back to the country and ate a supper of acorns and wheat kernels. Then he curled up under his oak leaves as he listened to the crickets chirp, and he turned to his window and watched the fireflies flicker. Back in the city, Alistair enjoyed the last of his pastry as he listened to the orchestra and watched ladies and gentlemen twirl around the bandstand. Both of the mice sighed at the very same time. They said, I love being home. Oh my goodness, isn't that funny? So really quickly before we get to our next story, they are similar because they're both mice, they're cousins, and they both love where they live, right? But they're different because one of them is wearing glasses, they both are wearing different clothes. Oliver loves the country and hates the city, and Alistair loves the city and hates the country. So there are lots of ways that we can compare and contrast them. Okay, so really quickly, we're going to read one more. And this one is called The Ant and the Grasshopper. And it is illustrated by Jason Wolfe. So he drew all of our pictures for us. Summer had finally arrived, and no one was more excited than the grasshopper. He jumped and sang in the tall grass. Summer's here, best time of year. He sang to a line of ants marching across the field. The ants were all carrying small bits of food, and the grasshopper quickly gobbled up each crumb they dropped. We've worked hard to gather this food, said one ant. You should help us gather food if you would like to eat it. Well, they're going to gather food. Oh, you're right, Miss Krista. That's another thing the mice had in common. They both loved each other. That's right. You can be different and still love each other and appreciate each other. Summertime is for playing and singing in the sunshine, not working in the fields and wasting the daytime, boasted the grasshopper. Summertime is for planting and gathering, said the ant. It's time for getting all the food we'll need for the winter. Winter is so far away, I think I'd rather go and play, sang the grasshopper as he leapt onto the cornstalk leaf. All afternoon the grasshopper lounged on the soft leaves of the cornstalks and munched on their corn husk. Those ants can gather, work, and store. I'll just snooze right here and snore, sang the sleepy grasshopper. Meanwhile, the ants lined the tunnels of their home with seeds and other food. When the snow is on the ground, we will be nice and warm in our nest, said the ants. We will have plenty of food to eat and plenty of time to play. So it sounds like the ants are hard at work preparing for the winter, making sure they have a place to stay and food to eat, and the grasshopper is just not worried. All summer long, the grasshopper watched the ants play as he played in the sunshine. When he saw them going to a picnic, he followed behind them and ate their crumbs. When he saw them marching out in the field, he would munch on the seeds they dropped. One day, the grasshopper was sleeping in the cornfield when he heard a loud noise. The farmer was coming to harvest his corn. The grasshopper jumped off his leafy bed and ran into the grass as the farmer harvested his summer home. As the grasshopper tried to think of a new place to play, he heard a plop. Oh, I'm sorry, said a squirrel up high in the tree. I have so many nuts that I dropped one. You can have one if you like, he offered. The grasshopper hopped away. He didn't want to stay in the grass with a nutty squirrel. I don't like nuts. No ifs, ands, or buts, he sang. Are you hearing these rhyming words? The grasshopper is rhyming a lot. Everywhere the grasshopper went, he was surrounded by chattering and gathering, which kept interrupting his playing and resting. A family of squirrels chattered in the trees and the birds twittered above him. The grasshopper was trying to find a new place to play when he saw an ant marching toward an orchard. You again, he said to the ant. I thought by now you'd have plenty of food stored for the winter. The ant smiled and said, It's always better to have a little extra than not enough. The grasshopper followed the ants to the orchard and ate apples. But when he arrived, the apples on the tree were almost gone, and the leaves had all fallen away. A cool breeze blew from the field, and the sun was covered by clouds. Winter was coming, and a very cold and hungry grasshopper didn't know what to do. Oh no, he should have followed all the other animals' advice, started gathering food. The next day the grasshopper was very chilly, so he decided to visit his friends the mice. Surely their home would be warm, and they would have some food to eat. Thank you for visiting, Grasshopper, said Mother Mouse. I would invite you to stay, but there will be no room for you when all of my brothers and sisters arrive for the winter. The grasshopper came up with a plan. I noticed there aren't many places in this house for your brothers and sisters to sit. If your family is sitting on me, then there will be plenty of room for me and your brothers and sisters, he said. Mother Mouse thought that was an excellent idea, so each of her brothers and sisters arrived and had a seat on the grasshopper. But there wasn't enough room for everyone, and the house became too crowded. The grasshopper decided to find another place to stay for the winter. Oh, man. Sounds like he's running out of luck. Okay. The grasshopper carried the last apple from the orchard through the field and tried to think of a warm place to stay. He wished he had a soft cornstalk leaves to sleep in and bright sunshine to lie under. He also missed the ants. Where were they now that he needed them? Each day the weather became colder, the days became shorter, and the food became harder and harder to find. The grasshopper thought of the ants tucked away in their warm nests with the food they had spent all summer gathering. The grasshopper remembered what one of the ants said. "You should help us gather food if you would like to eat it." This gave the grasshopper another idea. Maybe if he helped the ants, they would let him stay in their nest through the winter. So he shook the snow off his wings and flew to the ants' warm, cozy nest. Do you think they're going to let him stay? "Anybody home?" asked the grasshopper as he knocked on the ants' door. One of the ants came out to greet him. "Why aren't you out playing in the snow?" asked the ant, "or resting in the leaves?" The grasshopper didn't know how to answer, so he sang, "I should have listened to what you said. Now I'm cold and scared and unfed." It wasn't his best song, but he hoped the ant would understand. "We got our food by working hard," said the ant. "If you stay here, you will have to work hard too. So your job will be to sing for us every day, because winter is our time to play." All that winter, the grasshopper sang for the ants, and the next summer, the grasshopper sang this song as he helped the ants gather food. "Summer work is slow and steady, but when winter comes, I will be ready." The end. How did you all like those 2 stories that we read? I thought they were good because they have some lessons in them. Like the grasshopper didn't want to work for his food or help any of the ants get their food and get their nest ready for the winter. And when the winter came, he was cold and hungry and he had nowhere to stay. So he finally learned that he had to work hard and contribute to get food and shelter. Yeah, there were different rhyming words. That's true too. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for coming and listening to our stories today. I hope you enjoyed listening to the animal tales. And we actually have another reading about to happen right now from 1 to 1:30 with Miss Jessica. So I will be over there with you all chatting in the chat box. So I will see you all in just a little bit. Thank you for coming. Bye.